Hi, I'm John DeVore. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back to Monkey House. I am briefly back home in Brooklyn. Last week I got back from Europe. It was an amazing trip. And in a couple of days I go off to LA to do a couple of dealer events at Common Wave in LA with Wesley. The European trip was 2 weeks. I flew to Amsterdam, grab a rental car, drive a couple of hours south to a city in the Netherlands that sounds like but is not Verhoeven. I know Verhoeven is the director. That was amazing. I did that with my Benelux distributor. It's called the Dutch Audio Event. And then I drove back to Amsterdam. I actually drove a couple of friends of mine back to Amsterdam because they needed to catch a flight that was earlier than mine. So I got back with a bunch of hours to spare, and so I thought I was very clever. So I decided that I wasn't going to return my rental car because I returned the rental car at the airport at Amsterdam, which is where I dropped my friends off. Instead, I would drive to downtown Amsterdam so that I could visit the Rijksmuseum, which I have never seen. And in my top 5 artists, 3 of them are best represented in Holland: Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Van Gogh. So any opportunity, and I've never been to the Netherlands, so I was like, awesome, this is going to be amazing. They have the best collections of all of these. So I drove into Amsterdam, which probably some of you are already realizing is a completely hilarious mistake. Tried to find a parking space for about an hour and a half. Finally found one. Walked back to the museum, and by that point, even if I could get a timed ticket for that second, it would have left me only about 20 minutes in the museum before I had to then come back out, walk back to the car, get in the car, drive back to the airport, return the car to the rental place, and get on my plane to the next place I was going. So that didn't happen. But I got a lovely, first of all, I drove all throughout Amsterdam. I feel like I saw the entire city. And walked around a lot, had a nice lunch right on one of the canals. It was absolutely beautiful. It was wonderful. And next time I will see the fucking art in the museum because that's a big deal. So then I flew to Hamburg to meet my distributor in Germany, and my distributor picked me up there. He's from Hamburg. He took me around. He took me to his warehouse and his offices, and took me to the local dealer in Hamburg. I met Christian, who runs that. He's the owner of that dealership, that store. Great shop, Eisenberg Audio, I believe it's called. And then Arndt and I took a nice leisurely drive down to Berlin for an event the following weekend there at a dealer called Phono in Berlin. And I had already met Christian at various Munich hi-fi shows. As I had already met the proprietor of Phono Berlin, also at the Munich shows. I actually did a video with Phono with Peter. He interviewed me at one of the Munich shows. If I can locate it, I will put a link to that below. And that event went really great. It was amazing. And then I flew home. I managed to catch a little bit of a cold while I was there, but I'm back. It's almost out of my head. It's just it's just the back of my sinuses. But I feel 100%. I probably don't sound 100%, but I feel fine. But I did want to make a quick video while I was in Brooklyn, just to get some stuff out there, but also because so over a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago now, I was approached by a very accomplished photographer. He had done a project. He had put out a book called Dust and Grooves, and it was a series of interviews and photos of a bunch of record collectors. It was fascinating, beautifully done, beautiful photos, really great, really cool interviews. And he wanted to make a volume 2. So he approached me to be involved in that, and I said yes, and I did it. And it was a fun interview, and he came by and did some video and some photos, and I talked about a whole bunch of records that are important to me, spanning my whole life from very early on, records that I had in the 1970s that were very important, all the way to relatively recent acquisitions and loves. The interview was by my good friend Michael Livornia, so it was great. It came out really beautifully. And Ilon, the guy whose project this is, he asked me. He wanted to make sort of mixtapes of, I don't know if it's all of them, but some of the people interviewed in the book. He wanted to have a mixed tape that sort of represents some cuts from the various records that are talked about. And so rather than just sort of making a little Spotify playlist, I decided to digitize the actual records that I was holding in the interview, and that was a lot of fun. And that book is now available. I don't know if it's shipping yet. It's definitely available for pre-order. I saw copies of it. I saw he posted my interview on the website, so I'll put links to that down below. The book looks beautiful. It looks really beautiful, and it's 100 or so different collectors, fascinating, like a whole range, really fascinating. So I'll put a link to that below. But that process of digitizing the records, I wanted to talk about what my signal chain is in order to do that. And I talked about it a little bit with, I think, when I digitized some recordings of my mom and of my grandmother. I had cassettes and open reel tapes from them playing, and which I digitized. So I think I did talk about it a little bit, but it actually has come up again. Aside from the Dust and Grooves Volume 2 being released now, I have another visit scheduled for next week when I get back from LA, and it's I'm not going to talk about it much, but it's a thing. It's a PBS thing and they're doing an episode on Rachmaninoff, and they wanted to come by and hear me play some of the 78s that I have of Rachmaninoff playing his own music. And in order for them to have a good copy of that, I have digitized a couple of those as well. And so it kind of resurfaced. I sort of repatched together my digitizing signal chain, and I just wanted to go over that a little bit. So that chain is starting from the source, my turntable. It's a Garrard 401, which plays 78s beautifully. I've got an Ortofon 78 cartridge mounted on my Dynavector tone arm. That is feeding my EMT preamp, which has the variable EQ, so I can really dial in the equalization for the 78s, which generally speaking, except for very late 78s, is not an RIAA curve. So having that ability to adjust the equalization is very helpful for getting the best sound out of those records. Balanced output from my EMT JPA66 feeds a Lynx Hilo, which it's a pro mastering unit. And it is an A to D and D to A and router. So it has an enormous number of possible routing configurations in terms of inputs and outputs. It has very high quality analog to digital and digital to analog conversion. That first appeared on my radar years ago. This piece is actually, it's not new. It's not a new piece. I think they just came out with a Mark II, but mine is a Mark I. I've had it for years. It appeared on my radar when I saw show coverage from a hi-fi show, and someone had this beautiful, very compact little system, and they were using the Lynx Hilo as their DAC and preamp. And it has a number of display options. It has a touchscreen that has a number of display options. And they had these beautiful little digital analog VU meters on the display, and it absolutely caught my attention. I figured out what I researched what it was, and then when it came time to when I needed to do some digitizing, I realized that that was really sort of a perfect solution. So in my system, my EMT preamp feeds that via balanced. That converts the analog to digital in whatever format I want, not DSD, but it'll do up to quite high res. And then that connects via Thunderbolt to my Mac computer. And on my Mac computer, that digital input feeds Audacity. I use Audacity not because it's free, although that's nice. I use Audacity because it was the simplest interface, and it was the program for actually recording digital that I found that was truly bit transparent. It was bit perfect. I had Apple Logic already. My kid uses Logic in creating music, and for that it's amazing. But no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get something that was for sure bit perfect, bit transparent. I wanted the bit stream coming from the Hilo to be recorded on the hard drive. That's what I wanted. I didn't want any reconversion or anything like that to happen. So the tracks are recorded in Audacity and then exported as AIFF, generally speaking. And then in order to monitor, so that I'm not hearing anything unless, of course, I turn my computer speakers on. But rather than do that, the Thunderbolt connection between the Lynx Hilo and my computer is a two-way, very wide bandwidth connection. So I set Audacity to assign as a monitor the Thunderbolt connection. So then that goes back into the Lynx Hilo, which then converts the digital feed back to analog and then feeds it out a monitor output, which then feeds an amplifier and goes into my main system. So I'm going to shoot a video clip of me digitizing a Rachmaninoff. It's the Rachmaninoff playing his Humoresque. I think it's a late 20s or maybe early 30s recording. I should have looked that up before I shot this. But I'm gonna play that through the whole system, make a digital file from it, and it will be feeding out through that whole rig out the speakers in here in Monkey House. It's going to be fancy and complex, but I should be able to do it handheld. It's a great sounding signal chain. The files that I make are really good sounding. So I will, when I make this video that I'm talking about, I will I will follow the entire signal chain as it goes all the way through to the end to the speakers. I hope you enjoy this. I'm off to LA, as I said. I will see you when I get back. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.